So there you are. You're talking to the service manager about your truck that's just been diagnosed. And he says, well, I know you brought this in for problem A, but let me tell you about what else we found about problem F, B, A, R, and let's not forget Omega. And all you can think about is cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. So, let's go over the 3 most common preventative maintenance things that get overlooked by truck drivers. Coming up. So as I've talked about many times on the vlog before, I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to preventative maintenance or necessarily taking care or taking apart or putting things back together. That's just not skills that I have acquired up until this point in my life. And I'm learning, and what I learn I try to pass on to you guys. But I thought, why don't I reach out to one of my most favorite channels on all of YouTube. He's one of the channels that when I started looking for a truck that I couldn't get enough of his content. I mean, I just binged watch over and over and over. And even though he's a Caterpillar mechanic, a lot of these things cross over to the other engines. Not everything. And admittedly, at the time, I was looking for, probably a 6NZ, possibly a 3406. But anyway, a lot of that knowledge transferred through into, a lot of these newer motors because, for the most part, a motor is, kind of built one way. So a lot of the knowledge applies across the board, but he's a gold mine of information, and especially if you have a Caterpillar motor. If you have a Cat, you probably already know about Josh. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to shoot him an email and we're going to see what happens. And lo and behold, I got the email back and I was so excited. I couldn't wait for this. And here he is. This is Josh from the Adept Ape channel.
Hey Brian, this is Josh for the Adept Ape channel, and if you don't know me, I am a diesel truck engine, Caterpillar in particular, YouTuber, and I have my own channel, but you asked me a question about diesel truck engine maintenance, and I've worked for a Caterpillar dealer since around the year 2005, so about 14 years now, and over those years, I have learned a lot about trucks, maintenance, and engines in particular. And I wanted to kind of go over a few things about things that I think get neglected or that people could do a better job of servicing or have a better knowledge about. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing that comes to mind is your cooling system. And what I'm talking about really is the coolant that's in your cooling system. And for the most part, if you ask a guy when his last oil change was, he'll know, or he'll know when the next one's due. But most people don't know when the last time the cooling system was serviced. And even if you're running some sort of extended life coolant, it's not usually made to run the life of the truck. Even Cat's extended life coolants, they only go about 6 years, and that's the extended life. The standard grade, they recommend changing it about every 3 years. Now, what does the coolant do over time? Well, it breaks down, but it's also holding dirt, it's holding metal contaminants, any other contaminants that are in that cooling system, similar to how your oil will hold those until you drain it. So you want to flush that out when you're doing a coolant service, and that's going to help retain a very good operating cooling system. Not only that, coolant has what they call cavitation and rust inhibitors in them. And when you start breaking down your coolant, when it gets really old, you'll start losing those, and you can get what they call cavitation, which is especially prevalent on a engine with liners, because as the liners are firing, or the cylinders are firing, you get small movement in the liner, and what it does is it creates a a small vacuum against the coolant because coolant encases the liner and it can cause cavitation. This can actually put little holes in the liner. Not only that, the coolant is going through your mostly cast iron blocks and it can start eating into the liner seal areas, the coolant jackets. There's a lot of damage that a bad coolant can do to the engine. So that's the first thing that came to mind. The second thing, and I'll just touch on it kind of briefly, is the air dryer cartridge. Most people don't know when that was changed last. A lot of them, they should be serviced about every year, and it depends on humidity and the volume of air that your air compressor is putting out. If you're on a on-highway application, you're not going to use as much air as a vocational truck where it's using some sort of dump bed or something like that. But that's one thing to check if you've never checked, is check your air dryer cartridge. And the last thing that comes to mind, and it's kind of a controversial topic, is grease. Now, grease is important because any grease component, we're talking your U-joints, your S-cam bushings, and the brakes, you're talking your clutch, your throw-out bearing, your suspension, those items need to be lubricated, but they don't have oil, they have grease. Now, guys go to different places and they get different greases, and greases don't always mix. If you have a lithium complex and one place is using a calcium sulfonate grease, those aren't really supposed to be mixed together. Now, I like the calcium sulfonate greases better. They have better water resistance, they have better shear factor, they're heavier duty greases, but they're harder to use in a grease gun, so most places use a lithium complex grease. Don't mix them. If you know what kind of grease it's in it, try to go to a place that uses the same type of grease. Or if you do need to change, make sure they pump whatever they're greasing all the way out so they get all the old grease out. Okay? Those are my suggestions. Thanks.
Josh, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so appreciative, and I greatly appreciate you doing this for me and doing this for the community out there that's watching. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Go check out Adept Ape, and you are certainly going to boost your knowledge for maintenance, but let's see if we can actually prevent some of those big costs when you do get to the dealerships, get to the shops out there, and I think that that's the key. That's why this video is one of the first few in the series of the Successful Owner Operator, because maintenance really starts with being preventative. And if you can be preventative in your maintenance, you're going to keep your bills and costs much lower, and the engine's going to last much longer, and hey, that means more money in our pocket, and that's what we're all here for, right? So I hope you enjoyed that. Smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, as always, stay driven. So as you guys know, so as I've talked about many times, welcome back. So, I see some things just never change.